Dating after abuse does not feel like dating. It feels like waking up to a body full of memories you never agreed to carry. You're not walking into a connection with a blank slate. You're walking in shaped by everything that you survived. The gaslighting, the confusion, the emotional punishment, and the slow erosion of your own voice. That past doesn't just disappear because the person did. It lives in your instincts, your pacing, your tension, your guard, your silence, and your vigilance. Women love to say they have trust issues, but the truth is far more honest and a lot more painful. You don't struggle to trust men, you struggle to trust yourself. You don't fear someone hurting you, you fear that you'll feel something, sense something, know something, and abandon yourself again. That is what you are truly afraid of, repeating the moment where your body screamed the truth and your loyalty silenced it. This episode is about changing that pattern permanently. I'm Megan Webster, an abuse recovery coach, a trauma-informed strategist, and the woman a narcissist hopes to never meet twice. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast, the place where your wounds stop running your dating life and your intuition becomes the voice that leads you. The work we're doing here today is for the woman who refuses to bleed for another relationship and is ready to date from sovereignty instead of survival. Why does self-trust feel unstable after abuse? Your self-trust collapses slowly. You lived in an environment where your instincts created conflict, so you learned to mute them. You sensed the truth long before it was spoken, but every attempt to express it led to denial, defensiveness, or emotional punishment. Your clarity was treated like an attack. Your intuition became something you felt you had to justify, and second-guessing yourself became safer than speaking up. Now when you date, your body reacts instantly, but your mind hesitates. You question your reactions because you're trained to treat your own perception as unreliable. You wait for confirmation because evidence once protected you from retaliation. You hold back your truth because the memory of backlash lives deeper than the present moment. Rebuilding self-trust isn't about becoming more confident. It's about proving to yourself that you don't have to ignore your own signals ever again. When your current behavior shows loyalty to your inner child, trust returns on its own. Not because you finally figured it out, but because your body recognizes that it is safe to listen to itself. There's a big difference between instinct and activation. Dating after abuse makes it easy to confuse instinct with activation because both show up as sensations. Instinct often feels like a quiet clarity, a grounded knowing. Activation feels like urgency, a pressure to do something immediately. Instinct gives direction, activation demands relief. But trauma blurs them until everything feels like a threat. You feel a shift in pacing or tone and react as if danger is present, even when the man hasn't done anything wrong. The response isn't about him, it's about your history. Your nervous system is being calibrated by instability, so even neutrality can feel suspicious. When someone takes their time, your system remembers the stonewalling. When someone gives you space, it remembers the silent treatment. When someone asks a question, it remembers interrogation. And when someone seems emotionally contained, it remembers the coldness. This is why you second guess yourself. You want to trust your instincts, but you fear reacting from old wounds. You want to give somebody a chance, but you worry you're overlooking something real. This push-pull is not confusion, it's conditioning trying to protect you without a clear target. The black cat shift is learning to separate the two signals. Instinct feels steady, while activation feels sharp. When you create space to identify which one is speaking, your decisions become clearer, your pacing will be more grounded, and your ability to discern becomes effortless. Your relationship with time also changes after abuse. Waiting feels dangerous because uncertainty once meant emotional punishment. Slow pacing reminds you of the inconsistency that you lived through. Ambiguity recreates the instability that you escaped. And your body interprets a lack of clarity as a threat, even when there's nothing wrong. So you rush. Not because you're impulsive, but because you're trying to outrun the feeling of being unanchored. You want the situation defined quickly so you can feel like you can relax. You want reassurance early because the past taught you that safety disappears without warning. You also want emotional confirmation because love used to be unpredictable, conditional, and inconsistent. This has nothing to do with the man in front of you. It's your past using speed as a form of protection. When you slow down, you feel exposed. When you take your time, you fear something will shift. When you hold your boundaries, you worry about being difficult. When you wait for consistency, you fear being too cautious. A healthy pace doesn't feel natural at first because anxiety once dictated your timing. The black cat woman understands that her control comes from slowing down the process, not accelerating it. A measured pace gives you information. A rushed pace gives you projection. Intentional movement reveals misalignment faster than urgency ever will. Your attraction grows differently when you're not sprinting. Chemistry stops clouding your judgment, potential stops seducing you, and familiarity stops masquerading as compatibility. The woman who controls the pace, the woman who never repeats her past. Self-abandonment never arrives dramatically. It returns in the tiny, almost invisible negotiations you make with yourself, the moments where you let someone else's comfort matter more than your own. It shows up the second you swallow discomfort because you don't want to seem like too much. It hides inside the rewrites you do in your mind where you turn red flags into misunderstandings. It lives in the way you tell yourself you're tired, emotional, or overreacting. Anything that allows you to postpone you think you're being patient or giving someone grace. But what you're actually doing is rehearsing the old survival script that cost you years of your life. You're slipping back into the emotional positioning you learned inside of abuse. The position where you are responsible for maintaining harmony even at the expense of yourself. Every dismissed instinct widens the gap between who you are now and who you used to be. Every rationalized misalignment tells your system that needs can be moved, adjusted, and softened. And every time you shrink to keep things peaceful, you are reminding your nervous system of the exact environment that you fought to escape. The black cat woman understands in the smallest moments of misalignment that it is not a glitch, it is information. She knows that her first feeling is her truest one. She recognizes that discomfort isn't something to manage. It's a signal demanding her attention. She stops treating her intuition like an inconvenience and starts treating it like a compass. Self-abandonment ends when you stop protecting dynamics you're not sure you even want. It ends when you refuse to trade in your self-respect for approval, and the moment you decide that preserving your alignment is more important than being perceived as agreeable. There's a pause that forces you to snap out of your trauma autopilot. It is a moment between instinct and action where you get to reclaim yourself. When something triggers you, a shift in tone, a delayed response, a change in energy, your body's going to light up with old wiring. Not because this current person did anything wrong, but because your nervous system learned to equate uncertainty with danger. The pause interrupts the loop. It gives you room to breathe instead of react. It gives your intuition space to speak without fear drowning it out. In this pause, you stop being the version of yourself who had to respond instantly to avoid consequences. You become the woman who chooses timing, clarity, grounding, before responding. The pause is the exact opposite of your old life. It's a moment where you stop performing emotional labor that you no longer owe. You do not need to explain to anybody why you need space. You do not need to apologize to anyone for not responding immediately. And you do not need to justify your timing, your process, or your boundaries. Any man who wants access needs to be able to sit inside your silence without demanding reassurance. The pause strengthens your intuition because it gives your system proof that you are no longer in danger. So every time that you pause instead of react, your nervous system is learning, I am not in survival anymore. I can slow down. I can listen to myself. I have power of choice. These are the moments your self-trust starts to return to full force. One of my long-term clients, I've known her while she was married, through divorce, and now she's re-entering dating again. Her level of self-awareness is just stunning. She's not rushed a single piece of this. She would wait until she's fully ready to make the decision, and then she would execute. She was speaking to several different men during a month-long period. She had connections with each of them differently. There came the time to meet, and 3 out of 4 pushed up against her boundaries, her beliefs, and her gut reacted. She paused before responding. Several times we had conversations in between. Not that she questioned herself, but she did question how these men got into her field. And that lesson has done wonders for her solely based on the fact that her register for bullshit is a lot stronger now. Not cold, not abrasive, just spotting the inconsistency, the love-bomby type messages, the overconnection, the rush of things has now become a red flag for her that she is not comfortable with. Pausing before engaging has made sure that she is in a balanced place to give and receive. That was another lesson that's helped her date safely and securely on her timeline, nobody else. Trust isn't a feeling, it's a discipline. It's the act of choosing yourself even when fear tries to convince you otherwise. Women coming out of abuse want to feel safe before they act, but safety does not come before trust. Safety comes before the decisions you make in honor of yourself. Trust becomes leadership when you stop waiting for someone else's behavior to tell you what's true for you. You lead yourself by treating your perception as more than enough. This also happens when you choose standards that do not bend for anybody. And you're able to lead yourself by allowing your nervous system to dictate pacing instead of desire. When trust becomes a leadership decision, dating shifts completely. You no longer chase reassurance because you're too busy watching for consistency. You no longer get pulled into mixed signals because you refuse to decode them. You no longer bargain with your standards because you understand that shrinking them only recreates what you left. This is not about being closed off. This is about being anchored. This is the emotional authority of your life. And this is how you're going to start making decisions out of alignment instead of fear. A woman who leads with self-trust is not hardened. She's sovereign. She doesn't wait for someone to prove themselves. She observes how they behave and decides accordingly. She does not mold herself to fit into somebody's capacity. She sees whether they rise to hers. This is the version of you that terrifies most men who rely on confusion to get access. You don't get confused anymore. You get clear. Self-trust was not the problem. Self-permission was. I remember exactly when self-trust came back online for me. I was dating again after abuse. I wasn't trying to fall in love or build anything serious. I was just trying to understand who I was when I wasn't being controlled, minimized, or punished. I was on the dating apps for a couple of months, and if you've online dated, you know there's a lot of sifting through. There was someone that stuck out to me. He's nice, normal, was good communication, seemed balanced, the kind of man people tell you is good for you. But every time we messaged, something inside me stayed slightly on guard. My body wasn't relaxed, my breathing wasn't deep, and it felt off in a way that I couldn't fully articulate. It wasn't uncomfortable that I was back dating again. It did feel like something deeper than that. And the old version of me would have smoothed out that feeling. I would have blamed trauma. I would have given it time. I would have convinced myself to wait for proof. That version of me needed evidence before she acted because the evidence kept me safe. But this time I didn't negotiate. We were sending some voice notes one night. He was telling me a story, nothing crazy, but something shifted inside of me. And it was not fear. It was not dread, just a quiet recognition that my body had seen enough. For the first time in my life, I didn't really question the feeling. I didn't justify it, soften it, debate it, or ask anyone else to even validate it for me. I trusted the instinct, and I ended things cleanly, just a simple text in the morning, no explanation, no guilt, and then I put my phone down. And I knew it was the right decision. I didn't lose a man or a connection that night. I started to regain myself. Inside of the Black Cat Academy, I teach you how to become her, the one whose presence shifts the dynamic because she no longer dates from wounds, she dates from sovereignty. She doesn't hope a man is who she wants him to be, she watches who he is. She doesn't silence discomfort, she responds to it. She doesn't override her pace, she honors it. She does not dilute her standards, she steps further into them. This is the version of you that men cannot manipulate, not because you're hardened, but because you've chosen to anchor. This version of you doesn't need reassurance because your body gives you all of the answers before anybody else can. You no longer fear losing a connection because losing yourself is no longer an option. We will spend 6 months together in close proximity, high-touch coaching to rebuild the relationship with yourself again, to truly date safely and securely and become the woman who rises from her wounds sharper, softer in the right places, and immune to the tactics that once destroyed her. Rebuilding trust isn't about erasing fear. It's about refusing to abandon yourself again. When you honor your internal signals, the past loses its grip on your decisions. When you move with intention, not urgency, you stop repeating relationships that drain you. When you trust the body the first time that it speaks, your entire life will upgrade. You are not here to date like the woman you used to be. You're here to date like the woman who survived her. If this episode cracks something open in you good, that means you are waking up. Please share this with another woman who needs it. Hit follow so you do not miss the next one. Send me a DM on Instagram to tell me what hit the hardest for you. This is the Narcissist Worst Nightmare podcast. And remember, the woman who believes herself becomes impossible to break.